Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the Youth Soccer Podcast. I'm Paul Spacey, and I'm joined by Collett and Phil Walsh as we discuss all things youth soccer, or football, depending on which country you're in. Today's episode is about player mentality, and it's a big topic, so let's just get straight into it. Phil, obviously we're in California, but we all grew up in England, and it's probably fair to say that we've seen a difference in mentality, not only between the different countries, but also between different generations, because we're coaching in a different time now. So when we're talking about player mentality, we're talking about things like resilience, work ethic, and dealing with failure. There's obviously much more to it, but I guess those are some of the most important aspects. So if we start with resilience, what's missing? What do players struggle with? Or why do they struggle? I've got a few ideas of my own, but maybe one of you two want to start with your thoughts.
I'm happy to go first, Paul.
Yeah, Phil.
I've been thinking about this for a long time, and ultimately, I think I've been thinking about my own mentality within the game when I was a player, and where it fell short, or where I had success from my own mentality, and then I reflect it and look at it with what the players, the youth soccer is going through at the moment. And I always feel like it comes down to a little bit of alignment. There was one thing in my life that I knew, and that was I wanted to be a football player, and there was nothing else I wanted to stop me from doing that. There was no, I could play football, but if this comes up, it was like, no, it was football, football, football. And my dad was a professional footballer as well. So that helped me sort of like get the ball rolling with it. But it was my intention from the get go. I'm not saying it was a completely successful intention, because I had to go and look into myself a little bit like at the same time. But what I found was that was my North Star. So the resilience and everything, all the setbacks, all the successes were all connected to that North Star I had. And I think what we're looking at here in youth soccer in America is a lack of that North Star for me, a lack of that. Well, I'm willing to go through this because that's what I'm intending to do.
Why is there a lack of that then? Why do the kids not have a North Star? Is it because their dad wasn't a pro like yours was?
No, I don't think. I mean, obviously, we've got lots of players that didn't have fathers who were professionals, and still had that North Star all across the world. I think it's encouraged to be a professional footballer, but really, I think there's this like there's like a little subtle, well, you can, we got a college and you could be a doctor if you wanted to be, or we can be a lawyer, or there will be another avenue somewhere. But in the meantime, let's just do this soccer thing as a side gig, and then let's expect to be pros.
Yeah, I'll get you. I get what you're saying. Well, if we go back to the resilience part, and not maybe go away from the North Star and back to the resilience part, what is it that specifically that players are missing? And I'll start off with something that I've seen a lot. I think for a lot of players, they're lacking resilience because they haven't really experienced hardship or really difficult situations. And without that, well, I think it's tough to build resilience without that. Like, I know Ricky can probably relate to this. It's like kickboxing training, where you kick a tree 1,000 times and your leg gets stronger to adapt. Unless you're in those tough situations all the time and those difficult moments, how do you build it? So if you grow up with a privileged life and you're not having difficulty, when it comes to sport, or you get to the end of a football game and you get your ice cream or whatever anyway, what does it matter?
I think for me, the resilience is built in the environment. I think that's exactly where it comes from. Paul, you said hardship, which is very true. I think for me, there's the two aspects of it: the environment and the generation that we're in now. I think that the generation that we're in now has grown up with the technology. Everyone wants things quick. Everyone wants things now, and they kind of, instead of going through the various steps to get from A to B, it's just they just want to get there immediately and they miss out on certain parts of the process. And for football, it's a competitive contact sport, and resilience and grit and determination and desire, it's a big thing. It's a big thing, and I think that a lot of it, especially at the youth level, we're in a generation where there's a lot of overprotectiveness of exposing kids to certain things in terms of hardship. And I think that for this particular sport, you need to go through that in order to be a good player.
Yeah, no, that's bang on. And we've talked about that in the last few weeks, the three of us, obviously, in terms of the teams that we've coached and the players we're seeing and the things that are missing. And maybe there's too much of an emphasis across the board on everyone wanting to pull out the tactics board and share their expertise on the X's and O's and what they can do with inverted wingers, and a lack of focus on the really important basic stuff, which is collective defending, team spirit, working hard for each other and doing the basics right. Phil, you talk about this a lot and you've got really good opinions on it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Again, Paul, I agree with you both wholeheartedly. I just want to ask the question before I get into that, because I think we all have to be on the same page about something, and that's what would be the reason a kid keeps getting back up, or a player?
They've watched a Rocky video.
Well, do you know what? Even if they have, it was a message, wasn't it? It's a message about never giving up, and getting back up and going against the odds and training hard and having, I don't necessarily think it has to be some sort of like, I'm getting up for this reason. It might be just, I'm getting up because that's what I do. I'm the sort of person that gets back up.
So a really, really young kid, would they do that naturally, or is that comes from their childhood and their parents? Obviously, there's a big parental input.
Well, I think different areas would produce different players and different mentalities. Obviously, we're in the west side of Los Angeles, which is it's a very different area to say maybe South Bay or Long Beach or the Valley. So you know more about that than I do, Paul. What's the ratio you see with people that are turning up? Let's talk about the west side of LA. What's turning up here ratio wise for people that have grit, determination, never give up, get back up spirit? What is it here? Like 1 in 100? Because I would only say it's a handful.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the exact ratio is, but it's a bigger percentage of kids that have grown up without too much difficulty, and perhaps without being knocked down a lot. And unless you get knocked down a lot, you're not going to learn how to get up anyway. And the other thing is, they might be doing, I've talked about this on social media and people sometimes get angry. You can't do 4 sports and 2 instruments. You can't do football, tennis, golf and soccer, whatever you want to call it, soccer, football, and then do trumpet and go to band camp and do all the other things as well and be good at football. It just doesn't work.
Be a bit of an animal on the pitch, I mean, like.
Yeah. I mean, there's a sibling impact to that. I know that because I'm a twin and I've got an older brother. If you grow up with siblings or cousins, whatever, and they're older than you and stronger than you, and you grow up playing football with and against them, you develop that resilience because they don't care that you're smaller and younger. You just get chucked around and thrown to the ground, and you have to deal with that. But if someone grows up without any siblings, and they've not experienced that at a young age, they don't develop that resilience in the same way.
I think that there's an important distinguishment to make is between rec soccer and club soccer. One of the biggest eye openers for me over the last 10 years has been seeing the players that had the entryway into the sport, into rec, and those that had the entryway into club. The ones that have the entryway into rec soccer, they develop certain behaviors and certain characteristics which stays with them because that's obviously the first experience of playing the sport. And then when they make the transfer over to club, they bring those things with them. And for me, one of the biggest things is the equality aspect of playing rec. Equal minutes. Everyone high fives, even if they've lost a game. Everyone still gets the donuts at the end of the game, even if they've been pumped. And there's a big transition period, resilience-wise, from rec to club, and it can take a while to shake that. And not only that, but slightly off topic, but in terms of the actual fundamentals and aspects of defending, for example, they're very, very different between rec and club. So there's I think that's an important distinguishment to make is between the two.
Yeah, it is. Gary Clyburn from 343 would say it's all rec. so there's no difference. But there is a difference between genuine rec and club, and that transition is a big one. Like the refereeing is a good example. I've refed, so I understand it. In AYSO, let's use AYSO as rec. They're obviously involved in club soccer as well now, but as a rec organisation, if you lean on someone or make contact and they fall over to the ground, that's a foul. And kids grow up playing that way, thinking that you can't lift your arms up, you can't move any parts of your body, you can't really touch anyone else. It's almost like a non-contact sport. And so if you spend a number of years doing that, and then you move into the club arena, and you suddenly play a game in East LA where a Latino kid has been smashed over by his brother 50 times growing up, the first tackle you get in that game, he knocks you 10 feet. The referee just goes, play on, no worries. It was a shoulder charge. The kid's crying. The parent on the sideline is fuming because they think their kid's been hurt. And then we hear, hey, foul, he charged him. And like, that's the starting point for a kid going from rec to club. And we've seen that for years.
Yeah. And another aspect of it, again, going back to the resilience is, and Paul, we spoke about this yesterday, the social media. A lot of the kids grow up now looking at social media, seeing the fancy flicks, the tricks, the freestyles, the goals, in these snappy 10, 20-second videos with music in the background. And they see that, and that's what they want to do. They want to do those types of things. But the fundamental aspect of it all, for me, is the mentality, is the resilience. Because again, it's a contact sport. It's a competitive contact sport. And I don't know if culturally, obviously where we grew up in England, it's the only thing that we play. So we're kind of familiar with it from a very young age. Whereas over here in the States, it's been a sport that's been adopted, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years ago. But as recently as, I don't know, the last 15 or so years, it's really grown. And so it's still in the learning stage. And I think that it's gonna take a little while longer to trace it back to its roots in terms of the competitiveness and the contact aspect of it.
I think that's a fair thing to say about it, that it's not been around as a sport as long. But I don't know about anyone using the excuse of, well, they're not sure about it being a contact sport, or the mentality of kids here. Because I've watched American football training and coaching. It is crazy. The coaches are really, really hard on the kids. The kids are little animals. So they've got that character. They've got that mindset. They've got the resilience within American football. I've seen it. And I love some of the stuff that I've seen from those practices. I've taken stuff from it to try and transfer it across to football, soccer. But they've got it.
Yeah, but that's their sport, right? This is one that they've adopted.
Yeah.
And when you adopt it, I always say that if in England we adopted basketball, we would understand, the coaches would be able to understand the game to a certain level, and they'd probably be able to set up a team and get kids playing, etc., etc. But in order to understand the real root characteristics of the sport, you'd have to go to America to understand that. I don't think an entire sport can be adopted and then all of the characteristics come with it. I think it takes a long, long time. I get what you're saying in terms of the American football. I mean, some of the practices that we've seen are very, very intense. But it's already ingrained in the culture. So I'd say that the kid, even those that are perhaps not so resilient, they understand that because they've grown up with it, and it's kind of already in the culture. So I think for me, there is a cultural gap that needs to be bridged. And I think the resilience aspect of it is something that maybe hasn't been adopted as much yet.
Yeah, one thing. Sorry, Ricky.
Go on, Ricky. Go on, Phil.
No, I just wanted to say that, Ricky, like I completely and utterly agree with you 100% about this adoption and taking. But what we're doing, what's happening in this country at the minute is they're going in all these different directions, in my opinion, naturally, organically, for where they're getting their information about football. And we think very differently to, say, Brazilian people. Like English people, European football is very different to South American football. I haven't even tapped into what African and Asian football might look like. But this is such a multicultural society around here. It's like they're getting all these different. I mean, first of all, I think the Americans themselves, they're like seeking half-assed help outside of themselves to be like, right, can you help us build the sport and then help us understand what it's truly about? And then simultaneously go into different cultures when they do that half-assed attempt. So they're going to get all these different messages. Like American, in my opinion, and this is back to the mentality of the player, they need to align it with what the Americans are about. Like, first and foremost, I don't think it's a Brazilian type culture here. I don't think it's a South American. I sense more European here. But then having said that, then you got to go somewhere on a Saturday afternoon where it's 103 degrees and try and grind out a result against players that might be used to that kind of weather,
Yeah,
and then we've got different weather systems here. We've got different climates all in the same, like over the space of about 100 miles. I mean,
yeah, I think that.
I would say this. Sorry, Paul. Sorry to interrupt. I'd say this. Like when we say about the joke about Stoke on a Tuesday night, like if you're at top of the league, when Stoke was in the Premier League, if you're playing in the Premier League, at some point you might have to go to Stoke and get a result on a Tuesday night. So your team must be prepared for that game regardless to go and probably to win a league and be a best team in the league. Teams around here need to be prepared for Bakersfield on a Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a poor pitch. And no one's taking that into consideration and building teams to go and be able to combat that. That's what I believe.
You're spot on. We've seen it for years with the teams we've coached, and we've made some progress, but probably not enough, right? That we go to some of these really difficult places where you have to try and go and compete and win on a crappy field in tough conditions. And all the tactics in the world and the overlapping and all the things you work on, and you can do patterns of play and everything else in practice, but it comes down to being able to prepare the players and improve and develop their mentality and mindset to deal with those situations. But again,
Absolutely.
how do you do that without going to Bakersfield or Lancaster or somewhere else 10, 15, 20, 50 times? How do you do it without doing it over and over again and improving each time?
Yeah, it's the experience again. It comes back to that. And in terms of like, how are they going to understand that just by a coach verbalizing this is what it is? Like they have to experience it. They have to and be willing to experience it as well. I think that's really, really, really important. The topic of resilience and fighting spirit kind of one and the same, really. And yeah, you're right, Phil. Going to Stoke one windy night on a Tuesday, Wednesday, windy night at Stoke is the joke in England, but you've got to have the character for that as well. And I'm sure that if there's a foreign player coming into the Premier League, let's say it's a Brazilian and he goes to Stoke on a windy night, it's a massive culture shock. And we've seen it over the years. Like some of them, they're wearing the gloves and they're struggling. It's freezing cold and they don't fancy it. And you can tell after a few minutes. And that's something that, again, once they've had that experience, they know what it's about. And then hopefully it serves them well in the future. And that's what we're asking the kids as well. Because we spoke about this, Paul, where we get them for 2 to 3 practices a week and they're getting a certain type of message from us as coaches. Obviously, our job is to build players and help them develop. But the rest of the week, they're in a completely different environment. They're in the school system where it's geared around certain different characteristics, which might be in almost direct opposition to what we might be talking to them about.
It is, and I'll rant and complain about it all the time. But it is. It's almost the opposite in schools.
So if you're a kid, a young kid, you've just got into high school, or even if you're in middle school, and you've got your coach is giving you one message and saying, this is how you would navigate this situation, such as going to Bakersfield in 103-degree heat on a tough surface against a tough opponent who's used to that environment. And then they're in school or they're in their environment at home or wherever it is. And that type of conversation isn't really taking place. So it's conflicting for the kid as well.
It is conflicting. Here's an example. You've got to go to one of these difficult places in a really difficult situation and win. Because let's face it, we're trying to win. That's why you play. To go there and try and win in a difficult situation, you need the right mentality and mindset and resilience that we're talking about. And we're obviously pushing that during practices, as most coaches do. And then you go to school, you haven't done all your work for your math or science test, but it's okay because the teacher comes up to you and says, no worries, we'll sit down and go through these few things and I'm going to pass you anyway. And I'm going to give you a certain grade anyway. And the kid goes, oh, that's great. So I can just get my grade. So without actually doing too much work, or we all have to have equal grades. Fantastic. So how then do you have that kind of contrast with then going somewhere to really have to work hard to try and win in a difficult scenario?
Sorry, Paul. I mean, I'm going to come in. I'm going to be. I sound like the first person who's going to be a little bit more. I'm going to start asking a few more questions about our judgment of these young players. Like if it's there subconsciously or consciously, I think they're working hard in their own way. It may not be physical. It may not be on a hot day. It may not be getting kicked by someone by the corner flag. But they're going through a lot. These local players and these local kids in this area. And then we've had fires up here. I've had lads in my team who had their house burnt down. Like there's no way I'm going to start to be like they ain't strong enough to go to Bakersfield. They have it in them. I trust that. They're going through stuff I can't possibly imagine, just as every other human might be. And I think I'm starting to take my judgment and try and really question it and be like, right, these kids are resilient. They've gone through COVID. They've gone through fires. They've gone through a society that really people can't grasp here, and around the world, in the Western world. And I'm believing that they're just waiting for a little bit of guidance, a little bit of support to let that fire out.
No, they are. They're crying out for help, and they want the guidance and they want the support. And I talk about this all the time. They want to be held accountable at the same time. They want you to coach them hard, hold them accountable, and love and support them at the same time. That's what they want.
Absolutely.
And if you're able to do all of those things as a coach, we'll be able to get the most out of the players that we coach on a daily basis.
And
isn't finding that balance.
Isn't soccer such a beautiful place to actually go and experiment with that? Like you can take a little bit of your personal anger, which might be deep inside you, if you can help them connect with it, and go and let it out on the weekend. And that can look in many different forms: going up for a header, like going into a tackle, making a run.
It's a balance, yeah. It's a balance. That's what makes a good coach is finding the balance, and what might work for one kid won't work for another. So that's why you need to get to know your players individually and understand what you can say, what you can't say. And that's a bit of trial and error. And I agree with you, Phil. I think that the kids, I think I'm talking from a point of view of having been here now for 12, 13 years, and overall seeing the difference in mentality between the kids. I mean, if we take the first teams that we had when we started our club and we compare the mentality of those kids compared to the mentality of the kids that we have now, it's night and day there as well. And I wouldn't say that those kids that we had in the beginning could be compared to anyone in, England, for example, or definitely not in terms of resilience from when we grew up, obviously in the 80s and 90s. But the thing is, you've got to find a balance between educating them and telling them what the truth is for certain situations, and also, putting your arm around the shoulder, letting him know he's safe, showing him the love, and giving him the opportunity to express himself, however that is.
Because how they are now, like ultimately, that's not their fault, right? They're growing up in this new environment and new time, so it isn't the kid's fault.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just if you want to be a competitive player on a competitive team in a very competitive contact sport, there's certain characteristics that you're going to have in order to make it to a certain level, whether that's high school, whether it's the top level of your club, whether that's college, whether that's the pro game. There's certain things that you need, and certain kids will have it and certain kids won't. And our job is to just guide them as far as we can to wherever it is that they want to go. That's all we can do, whilst being understanding of their own unique situation. I mean, it's not even just an environment thing as well. It's like what's going on at home. What have they got going on in their personal life? We've seen recently kids with certain personal things going on in their life, which is impacting and influencing the decisions they're making on the field. It's the whole approach to it is just about finding the balance. But the resilience aspect, the mentality aspect is a massive part of this sport. And I think that's the main thing that we've got to try and, they're all little puzzles, and we've just got to try and figure out the best way to solve the puzzle.
With regards to puzzles, Ricky, one of the things, like I mentioned at the start of this, was about having that North Star and that sort of way you're going and trying to take it that direction. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. A lot of the people I coach, very much, I encourage them to be very investigatory about the game, really going into it thinking, what is this game about? What can it show me? What can I understand about other people? What can I understand about the world? What can I understand? And in fact, I'm going to say it again, what can I understand about myself, and be honest about it? And the game is, in my opinion, is always going to present things to look at. And it doesn't necessarily, I'm doing this to be a pro. I'm doing this to I'm doing this as an education to understand myself and see where this goes simultaneously.
The journey,
completely different energy and way of playing the game. But then you have to be open. You have to be open in that regard. You have to be open to trying to understand what you're being asked to do. And do you believe in it? And it's connecting to you. It's helping the players connect to their own intuition, because when a coach comes along and tells them to do something and it doesn't align with their own heart, then things are going to start breaking down, and they're going to start not trusting the coach.
And that's why the relationship's so important, right? Between coach and players, and talking to them and communicating and getting through to them and really finding that connection, and just spending, whether it be sometime during a practice, whether it be a week, whether it be over a period of months, just spend time connecting with the players and getting to know the players on that level, as opposed to just delivering X's and O's tactical information to them, which is a part of the sport. They need it. It's fine. They need it. But I think the balance is wrong with too many coaches in terms of the tactical part and the connection part, and helping inspire the players, and that sort of stuff.
They get that in school, don't they? They get information given to them in school by the teachers, and we need to give them information as well. The most important thing for youth soccer, especially pro game's different. I mean, it's still really important in the pro game, obviously, but for youth soccer, these kids are turning from young boys, young girls into adults. That connection is really important. And the closer that is, the more they're going to get out of themselves, number one, and the more benefit it's going to bring to the team.
Yeah. Well, moving on then to the higher level stuff that you just mentioned, or pro game, how important is mindset in terms of playing at college or maybe a higher professional level? Obviously in college, everyone's really good. At the pro level, everyone's great. So the football side of things is fairly similar. There's not a massive difference between players. So the separating factor at both college and pro level is often mentality and strength of character. Having played professionally, Phil, would you agree? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've thought about this a lot. I really believe that people who just stay in the game and commit themselves to the game somehow just keep going in the direction the game's going to take them, into more of a professional environment. I believe that is what true professionalism is, and that's dedication. With regards to the mindset side of it, it's like, once you've got that dedication and you've pushed yourself into a situation where it's like, I think honestly, it's a little bit like, who's left out of all these people that have been to all these ID camps, all these tournaments, all these, it's like, being scouted, these matches, these cup finals, all these traumas, who's left? Who's still here? And I think that for me is, if you can still be there and amongst it all, trying and willing, you'll get moved into the positions. Now from there, there's a new mentality. Where do you go from there? What makes you play better? Like for me, I didn't even realize that I needed to feel safe to play well. Like I'm playing a lot of my football in scarcity mode, and survival mode, it's good for chasing down people, and it's good for putting your head in where you're thinking you shouldn't be putting your head in it. But ultimately, when the ball comes to you in a calm and you need to be a collective and calculated situation, like I'm all over the place. So like safety would have been great in those situations. So it's a balance between finding, in my opinion, that mindset of like, what's serving you out here and what isn't serving you on the field. But with the notion of, but I'm dedicated, I'm in it, I'm staying in it.
I think that's the great difficulty and challenge of football. You've just highlighted the contrast really well. to be an animal that wants to win the ball back, and 2 or 3 seconds later you've won the ball back. Now you need to suddenly be the composure or the composed artist with the ball after just being an animal to get it back. And it's a really, really difficult thing to switch between.
Yeah, well, that's emotional maturity, isn't it? On the field, that's the ability to turn off and on different emotional sets that you need at the right time. And that takes someone who's, in my opinion, very, very conscious. And if it's not conscious, they're very natural at it. And I think you look at people like Bellingham and stuff like that, you know, like we haven't named names here, but he's got aggression, but he's a cool cat as well, you know, like, and he's young. That for me is someone who's very naturally good at it. If you haven't got that, you need to go and cultivate it within yourself, in my opinion. And you can only trust the adults and the coaches around you who've done the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Really well put. Really well put. If a kid doesn't, or a young adult doesn't become a pro or play in college, how important is this mindset and resilience stuff we're talking about? And how much does building a strong mentality in football help them maybe in their business or their personal life moving forward? Let's say they don't go into college or pro football. How does this resilience and mindset stuff then help them in life?
I'm happy to answer it, Ricky, unless you want to go.
No, go ahead, Phil.
I mean, there's a whole, sorry, I'm really thinking about this, so please forgive me. But there's a complete diverse way of thinking about what bravery is. You know, like you can get a surgeon who's about to go and operate on someone, and that person might pass away within the surgery, who doesn't want to put their head in a football match. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're not brave. To go and do a surgery on someone when they're on death's door is a very, very brave thing to go and do, which I wouldn't be able to do. But I might be able to go at the back stick and land myself into the back post by accident trying to get a goal.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's like, I don't think anyone has to make themselves wrong. I believe everyone's got this power and this bravery and this strength. Football is going to show you how it turns up if you want to go and look for it. In my opinion, you know, like
it's a great vehicle. It's a great vehicle to teach those types of things, as is any sport. But I think because of the fluidity of soccer, and the fact that it is a contact sport, I think that makes a massive difference to certain things that you can and can't do. So you'd get certain lessons in soccer that you wouldn't get in basketball, for example, because it's a non-contact sport. And that's not saying anything negative about basketball. It's just apples and pears. It's completely different.
Sorry, Ricky, do you think that soccer, football will be able to show a human being their limitations, their subconscious limitations? So if you're looking at business or you're looking at football, you're looking at how successful you can be within something. And what I find is sometimes there is a little bit of the sabotage that comes in, which might come in their business as well. And it's all about whether or not they feel, if they feel worthy of it, they feel worthy of the success.
Yeah, because it's about you, innit? It's about you as an individual. I mean, it's a team sport, but it's what happens on the field is no different to what happens on the street or what happens in the boardroom or what happens in the classroom. It's like, how are you learning as a person to navigate certain situations, whether that's a situation where, you know, a lot of attention is required or a lot of focus, or it's a difficult situation. You know, an example on the field is it's the 85th minute, you're 1-0 down and you're trying to get the equaliser. Like, what are you willing to do in that moment as an individual to push yourself? Same in the boardroom, you're about to close a deal on a big, I don't know, a big merger or something, or whatever it is. You can insert here whatever you want. Like, how are you going to navigate that particular moment? Like, it comes down to you as a person and what you've got, what your character is, what lessons you've learned, what your experiences are. So yeah, I think it's a great, obviously I'm biased because it's the only sport apart from martial arts, which isn't a sport, but it's the only one I've really played. So a lot of the lessons I've learned are from football.
Same.
And then that's, yeah, all of us. And it's enabled us to then come across to the States, you know, start businesses, coach thousands and thousands of kids, and pass on the message and the experiences we've learned. But I think, Paul, just wanted to go back to what you said about the higher level. And I think the question was, you know, what does it take? Obviously, Phil answered and gave his bit, which is great because obviously he's been in the pro game a long time. I think for me, the biggest thing is when you get to that stage, like you said, the technical aspect of it, there's apart from your Messis and your Ronaldos and obviously your world-class players, the rest of the pack is kind of similar. They're at a very high level. And for me, it comes down to commitment at that point. It comes down to the details. You know, and I always remember back in the day, Ryan Giggs said he started to do yoga just to give himself an extra 2 to 3%. There's so many things now. I know that Haaland is really, really big on meditation, for example, and he has a whole routine. Just to get that extra 0.5%. You know, you might do a cold plunge in the morning. You might, you know, have a certain intake of food or vitamins, just to gain that 0.5%. And if you do multiple ones of those and you're committed to those types of routines, then suddenly you've just gained 5 to 10%. And then you start to break away from the pack. So that's how I'd answer that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul, you're a good player. What do you think?
I was all right. My transfer from football to business and life, my childhood through teens and into adult playing mostly semi-pro football definitely shaped me as a character and a person, and that's taken me through business and life and relationships. Through football and the resilience I built, and understanding how to win and being a horrendous loser,
Still is.
I knew coming out of, I know, you know, I'm a horrendous loser. I knew coming out of youth football, going into adult football when I was 16, 17, I knew at that point, because of my character and the way I knew that I was going to work for myself. At that point, I'd decided I didn't want to work for anyone else. And so from 18 years old, after spending a short period working for local government, I always worked for myself. I started my own businesses with my brothers and friends. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But I did that and had the confidence to do that because of what I'd gained through sport and through football. I really believe that. And that's still the case now. I'll go and try and do anything. And I know that I've got the resilience and the fortitude to push through and make sure that it's a success. And that comes from my time playing football. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, amazing.
Well, I remember being on the bus when I played for Blackpool, and I think I was 14 or 15, and I had to wear a suit at 14, 15 years old. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I had a suit, and I'm walking on this bus, and all the other kids are there. There's like, I don't know, 20 of us, plus maybe more. And I remember learning about the coach or the manager, I can't remember who it was, would look at you as you went onto the bus to make sure that your shirt was tucked in, your tie was right. And there was a standard. And I think two things there. One, I took that with me when I started my business, and I'd be in board meetings and stuff. I was always conscious of how I presented myself, because I know that a lot of people base a lot of emphasis on, you know, first impression. And there was also one of the biggest lessons I learned was respecting my elders. Because obviously I'm a young kid, I'm at a professional club, and I'm looking at these people who are, you know, all in suit and ties and monitoring what I'm looking at and what I'm looking like and how I'm behaving on the bus. And there was just this certain level of respect that you had for the elders. So there's so many different things that we can take from playing sport, playing soccer, which stay with you then for the rest of your life. And I think that's why we emphasize so much to the kids these other kind of lessons that they're learning. It's not just about putting the ball in the back of the net. It's not just about getting that highlight reel for Instagram. Like, there's so much more to it. And if like Phil said, they buy into that, then, you know, they're getting a really good education. Really good.
You're setting them so you're basically setting them up and giving them in football. I always talk about having a foundation from a very young age, a technical foundation that allows you to build and be a good player. Without that technical foundation, it's really hard to be a good player. And the same is true for life. Like, if you build that foundation and resilience through football, it gives you a great foundation to go into being an adult and then living a successful life. That's how I see it.
It helps if you've got good people around you as well. People that are aware and conscious about what's actually happening and where we're all going.
Yep.
Yeah. I just want to give a tribute out to some of the lads I played with when I was at Bath City when I was growing up. I think I met that era where it was like the old school, And my career transitioned through into what we're talking about today. So I got both. I played with both spectrums, in my opinion, and I had a taste of that old school. And that's the kind of soccer that I'd rather be on the pitch with all day long. You know,
The old school.
Yeah, we're talking about 26, 27-year-old. I was only maybe 19, 20 at the time, but we're talking about 28-year-old, 27-year-old blokes that were
Men.
27, men that were 27,
Men.
and like 6 or 7 of them out there, 1-0 down. We need more from you. Come on, we need this. We're all together in this. It was like very much a divine spirit within the game. And then they went on to be the assistant managers and stuff like that. And then everyone sort of kowtowed to the new generation. And so we should, because they've got a different message that we need to.
I think what you're getting at, and what I agree with, is we cannot lose some of those old school values and that mentality. We can't lose that. We've got to be able to fuse it and combine it with what's there today.
The game might go in a way we might lose the game in a way that's like it might never come back, without trying to sound scarce again. You know, it's very, very important, and it's very
It's the root of it. It's a big part of the root of the game, because that's where it comes from.
Well, there's a certain sort of like brotherhood in there.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of brotherhood, and there's also a little bit of like, if you get a good coach, you see so many players like Cristiano Ronaldo talking about people like Alex Ferguson, who was very good by record at changing with the times and changing with the different players that are coming through. To go from someone like Mark Hughes to Cristiano Ronaldo in the space of like however years it was, you know, like, and being able to sort of cultivate that type of player. You know, there's a way of working with both. I think that's why probably we all respect Ronaldo so much, because he seems to have a bit of Roy Keane in him, simultaneously have a bit of Garnacho in him. It's a very interesting blend that I think is a magic formula for where we should all be trying to take this game.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. That's a great point, mate. Well, we're getting towards the end. It's actually been a really good first chat. Maybe we can finish off, and I'll give my point why maybe you have a quick think about it. We can all come up with maybe an actionable tip or something for parents or players that they can take away from this in terms of the resilience and building it. And mine is, make yourself uncomfortable by putting yourself in difficult situations. Go and play pickup games with adults or players older than you. Go and play in games with no refs where you've got to fight and scrap for the ball. And maybe you're waiting for the referee to give you a foul, but there isn't a ref, so you're not going to get a foul and you've just got to get up. And then my thing off the field, I kind of touched on this a minute ago, from football transferring into life. Off the field, this is us doing a first podcast. It's maybe not as natural as it will be after we've done 10, 15 of them. Off the field, my advice to the kids would be, go and stand up in front of the class and speak, or stand up in front of a big group and speak. And it feels difficult and you'll feel a bit nervous and a bit uncomfortable. And that's how it's supposed to be. And look, you might tank your first speech, whatever, but feel those nerves or that fear and push yourself through it anyway. And that's how you build resilience.
Yeah. Through vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah. And coaches need to put players in difficult situations and different moments in practice and games. And again, that might be against better or older players, or it might be putting a player in a position that they're not comfortable. And with all of these things, obviously, we've got to support the player, but the players and the kids need to be allowed to struggle to just keep their heads above water and feel really frustrated and sometimes angry. And that's just part of the process. So for me, it's about putting themselves in really difficult situations on and off the pitch. And that's what helps to build your resilience.
Yeah. Yeah. Want me to go next, Ricky, or yourself? That was lovely, Paul. Very, very beautiful.
I'll go, Phil. I'm going to use an example of, well done, Paul. I'll use an example of an on-the-field thing, and I'm going to use this because it's something that I've been speaking with my players about recently, and that's being proactive versus reactive. I think that a lot of the times I see players waiting for the ball to arrive, and it's kind of a laxy-daisy, I'll spring into action when I get the ball, versus proactive, which is actually what Paul just said there. Go and putting yourself in a position to receive it. Go and putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. You might have to receive the ball from a centre-back and you're a midfield player. it's a very difficult area to receive it, especially if you've not done the basics like check your shoulder or you've not got much spatial awareness. And so I'd advise kids to go and put themselves in those positions on the field and be proactive and not be reactive, and be the guy or the girl that wants to have the ball at the feet as much as possible so that you can then contribute to the kind of overall impact on the team. And I think it's something that is really important. It's something that I've been focusing on a lot lately, like I said, with my players. So that's my example that I'd like to use.
Brilliant. So put yourself in really difficult spots during the game as often as possible.
Exactly. So just following on from what you said, really, Paul, but it just will develop so much, and it'll give you confidence as well, which, as we know, is one of the biggest things.
But more putting yourself in vulnerable situations.
Right. Again, and to get to that point where you just said it'll give you confidence, they need to understand they're going to go through many moments of feeling down and frustrated.
And make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes, but by showing and being brave or being vulnerable, whichever way you want to call it, and putting themselves in those positions, they're basically saying, I want to grow, I want to get better, I've got to go through this little moment here, make my errors, make my mistakes, might cost my team a goal, whatever it is, but I'll keep doing it, and eventually I'll come out the other side.
It's a great takeaway, that.
Beautiful.
Philip, anything to add before we close?
Yeah, it's quite a deep one, so I'm going to try and wrap it up. So I hope people don't take this out of context. But in my opinion, this game is coded with all the other different sports there is around the world. You can find martial arts in soccer. You can find basketball or tennis, or even if you wanted to, the samurai sword, fighting with a sword. That's why I believe it's played with such a spirit from places like Japan, Australia. You can get it in the Middle East. You can get it out in America. You can get it South America, lots of places in Europe. And I think the world connects to it because it's got all these different sports within it. And people can say, well, you don't pick the ball up and throw it in a hoop. I get that. But the screening in football could be similar to basketball. The up and down of defending and attack in basketball is very similar. Golf, chipping things into a corner, to turn a defenders, like with a different club. There's so many different aspects of all these different sports in this game. And my advice to these people that want to go and get involved in it is try and find your niche. What is it about you as a player that can go and bring something to this sport that might have something to do with maybe another sport or another skill that you have, because it's needed. Like, say, for instance, like, listen, I consider myself a failed football player, a failed professional. And I'm happy to admit that because I've taken on the lessons. I'm trying to learn the lessons from it. And I'm trying to go into my own vulnerability about what I need to go and look at. But I did 3 things. I allowed the defense to get out, held it for them, and popped it up to the people that can play that were better than me, that were facing the goal. Because I was big, I got it, I held it, I dropped it off, and I span. I did it over and over and over and over again through different seasons in different leagues, playing against different defenders. Yeah, every now and again, I tried to go win a header or I had to go and close someone down, but the majority of my game was based on 3 things. So find those 3 things, find those 2 things that you can bring to a game, and then go and protect yourself in the other ones. Don't get involved in the golf. Don't get involved in the basketball aspect of the game if that's not required. Or the samurai fighting, or the martial arts. Try and find what you're good at and bring it to it and do it over and over and over again and start affecting the game that you're playing.
I think that's a brilliant message. I really do. And that aligns with, I spoke to, I'm not sure he's there now, Todd Saldana, who used to be the director of LAFC Academy. And I asked him specifically about that with recruitment for players for LAFC. And he just said, look, Paul, everyone's good. Everyone can do this, this, and this well. What we're looking for kids, and I'm sure most academies around the world are like this, we're looking for players. What do you do well that's better than everybody else? What 1 or 2 attributes have you got that lifts you above all of these other kids? And I think
sometimes Paul. Sometimes it's a willingness to do things that other people don't want to do.
It doesn't even have to be, right, that you're the best crosser. It doesn't need to be that you're the best finisher. It might be that you're the player, and we've got them on some of our teams. I won't name them. It might be that you're the player that is prepared to run through 4, 5, 6 brick walls to get to where you need to be on the field, that lifts you ahead of another kid that's just not prepared to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, great, lads. Great. many more of these chats to come, I think. But that was a good one on player mentality to start. All right.
Fantastic, Paul.
Cheers, Ricky. Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, Ricky.
Cheers, boys.